I didn't really care what champion was gonna come first. I just wanted to fight for the belt. There's a lot of dudes in this division. They nobody's unifying, bro. Once I get the belt, I'm going straight for the champion. I see Brandon Figueroa is fighting Nick Ball. The winner of that, I want to fight. I see Espinoza. I don't think he has a fight coming up. I'm not sure, but I want to fight him as well too. Angelo Leo.
Carrington is one of them guys that bring a lot of excitement to the sport of boxing. You know, if you haven't seen him fight, you gotta go check him out. He's a great ambassador to the sport. You know, what he does in that ring, oftentimes you'll miss if you don't have an eye that's trained to see or know what's going on in that boxing ring, right? He could fight on the inside. He could fight on the outside. He could push the pace. He could fight on the back foot. You know, it's not really nothing that he can't do in that ring. You know, one of my favorite attributes that he has as a fighter is I love his body work. I love his defensive responsibility when he fighting in the pocket. You know, a lot of guys might fight in the pocket and be defensively irresponsible, but he's the quite opposite. You know, he know how to catch, shoot, counter punch on the inside effectively. You know, not them big looping punches that you see a lot of guys fighting on the inside having. You know, Shushu has shown time and time again that he's the goods. You know, he one of my favorite fighters to watch, man. You know, because I just feel like, you know, he just overexciting as a fighter. You know, the body work, the catching and shooting. You know, if a guy shouldn't be in the ring with him, he get him out of there. And, you know, that's what we want in our champions. He will be a champion that, you know, I have no doubt in my mind that's willing to unify, willing to make the best fights happen. You know, I hear him all the time talk about having a fiance. You know, I don't know if he got children or whatever the case may be, but having a fiance, a home, you taking care of your responsibilities, you know, that's enough to push you. And Shushu, one of them guys, he don't need nothing else in his tank. Not just an animal inside the ring, a gentleman outside the ring. You know, very pleasant attitude, demeanor. You know, somebody that you will want your children to take a picture with. You know, Bruce Carrington is one of them guys. He willing to fight any and everybody, and he deserves those opportunities. But, you know, unfortunately, it's not a lot of guys at or around his weight class that believe in themselves enough to take on a challenge like that. You know, this guy's fast, long arms, ability, like I said, to fight on the inside, the outside. You know, he's going to bring a hard night to any champion at or around his weight class. Carrington has all the talent that you need to be at a high level in boxing. You know, the only thing that he doesn't have is guys that believe in themselves enough to get in the ring with him. You know, he absolutely right. High risk, low reward. But once he get this belt, you know, I feel like also, you know, he'll be able to get in there with a lot more guys because he'll have something that other guys won't. You know, Bruce Carrington, right? You know, he one of them guys that bring a lot of excitement on fight night. A lot of skills, a lot of talent, you know, long arms. You know, IQ in that ring is second to none. You know, he's a tough out for anybody. And like I said before, you know, once he gets this opportunity to win this belt, I see him reigning with that belt like a champion over here that we want. We want a guy that's champ that fights the best, that's willing to fight the best, that calls out the best. Just sad for fans that they don't see him get to go out there and put on those type of performances against guys at a higher level. Carrington is just one title away from showing the world that he's that guy, you know, bringing excitement back to boxing and, you know, showing fighters how they really supposed to conduct themselves as a champion. You know, I see him winning a belt, calling out other guys. I see him beating those guys, calling out more guys. You know, and that's just the temperament of a guy like Bruce Carrington. I wish we had it more in the sport of boxing.